In the quiet village of St. Mary Mead, a shocking murder at a tea party unravels a web of secrets. When smuggler John Reedman is shot dead, Miss Marple uncovers clues, scratched furniture, a mysterious ad, a waxed-sealed letter, and a frightened girl's bracelet that point to a deadly smuggling ring. As fear grips the village, her sharp mind exposes a cunning killer hiding in plain sight. Will the truth spill before another strike? Chapter 1. The Strange Invitation. The sun dipped low over St. Mary Mead, painting the village in soft gold. Miss Jane Marple sat in her cosy parlour, her knitting needles clicking gently. The fire crackled, and a steaming teapot rested on the table, its floral pattern catching the light. She sipped her Earl Grey, her sharp blue eyes scanning the local newspaper, the St. Mary Mead Gazette. It was a quiet Tuesday, the kind where nothing much happened, until her gaze stopped on a small odd notice tucked between ads for jam and lost cats. Murder announced, it read in bold letters. A murder will take place on Friday, October 13th at 6:30 p.m. at Rose Cottage. Friends invited to tea. RSVP not required. Miss Marple's cup paused halfway to her lips. Her thin fingers tightened around the handle. A murder? Announced in the paper? It was absurd, almost a joke, but something about it felt wrong, like a cold breeze through an open window. She set the cup down and leaned back, her mind already turning. St. Mary Mead was a sleepy place, full of gossip and small secrets, but murder? That was rare. And Rose Cottage, home of Mrs. Clara Blackwood, a kind but nervous widow, hardly seemed the place for such a grim event. She folded the paper and glanced out her window. The village glowed with autumn leaves, and the church spire stood tall against the evening sky. Miss Marple knew every soul in St. Mary Mead, from the baker who skimped on flour to the vicar who loved his roses too much. Clara Blackwood, though, was newer, having moved in 2 years ago after her husband's death. She kept to herself, hosting tea parties for a small circle, mostly women like Mrs. Fletcher, the chatty postmistress, and young Lucy Hale, who helped at the library. Why would anyone announce a murder at her home? Miss Marple's needles clicked, faster. She thought of her nephew Raymond, who'd call this a prank, but her years of watching people, quietly, over teacups, told her otherwise. People hid things. A smile could mask a lie. A kind word could hide a sharp edge. She decided to visit Rose Cottage herself on Friday. If this was a game, she'd play it. If it wasn't, well, she'd be ready. Friday came quickly. The air was crisp, and leaves crunched under Miss Marple's sturdy shoes as she walked to Rose Cottage. Her black hat sat neatly on her white hair, and her wool coat kept out the chill. She carried a small basket with a jar of her homemade gooseberry jam, a polite excuse for dropping by. The village buzzed with talk of the strange ad. At the grocer's, Mrs. Fletcher had whispered to anyone who'd listen, "It's a stunt, mark my words. Clara's got a flair for drama." But Miss Marple wasn't so sure. Rose Cottage sat at the edge of the village, its garden tidy with late-blooming roses. The white fence gleamed and the windows sparkled, but the place felt too still, like it was holding its breath. Miss Marple knocked and Clara Blackwood opened the door. She was a small woman, about 50, with nervous hands and wide brown eyes. Her smile wobbled as she saw Miss Marple. "Oh, Miss Marple, how kind of you to come," Clara said, her voice high. "I didn't expect, well, so many people." Miss Marple stepped inside, her eyes darting around. The parlour was warm, with a lace-covered table set for tea. Scones, sandwiches, and a Victoria sponge sat ready, their sweet smell mixing with the faint scent of lavender. A dozen people milled about, more than a usual tea party. Mrs. Fletcher stood by the fireplace, talking loudly to Mr. Harris, the butcher, who looked uneasy in his stiff suit. Lucy Hale arranged teacups, her red hair tied back, her face pale. There was Dr. Thompson, the village doctor, sipping sherry in a corner, and Miss Emily Price, a sharp-tongued spinster, glaring at everyone. Others, less familiar, whispered in, small groups. "Did you see the ad?" Clara asked, wringing her hands. "I don't know who placed it. It's awful, isn't it? A murder here. I thought it was a mistake, but people keep asking me about it." Miss Marple nodded, her face kind but her mind racing. "Very strange, Mrs. Blackwood. Have you any enemies?" Clara's eyes widened. "Enemies? Oh, no! I keep to myself. It must be a prank." But her hands shook as she poured tea. Miss Marple took a cup, her eyes scanning the room. The guests were a mix of curious and nervous. Mrs. Fletcher laughed too loudly, saying, "Maybe it's a game like charades." Mr. Harris muttered about wasting time. Lucy dropped a spoon, her cheeks flushing. Dr. Thompson watched everyone, his glass untouched. Miss Marple sipped her tea, noting how Clara avoided looking at a tall man in a dark coat by the window. Hiar was a stranger, his face shadowed, his hands in his pockets. At 6:30 p.m., the clock on the mantel chimed. The room fell quiet. Clara forced a smile. "Well, no murder yet," she said, her voice thin. "Shall we have more tea?" A loud bang cut her off. The lights flickered, then went out. Someone screamed, a sharp, piercing sound. Miss Marple gripped her saucer, her heart steady despite the dark. A thud followed, like something heavy hitting the floor. Whispers turned to shouts. "What's happening? Turn on the light. Is someone hurt?" The lights snapped back on. Clara stood frozen, her teapot trembling. On the floor, near the fireplace, lay the tall man in the dark coat. His eyes stared blankly at the ceiling, a red stain spreading across his shirt. A small pistol lay beside him, glinting in the lamplight. Mrs. Fletcher gasped, dropping her cup. Lucy backed away, her hands over her mouth. Dr. Thompson rushed forward, kneeling by the man. "He's dead," the doctor said grimly. "Shot through the chest." The room erupted. "Who is he?" Mr. Harris demanded. "What's going on?" cried Miss Price. Clara swayed, clutching the table. Miss Marple set her cup down, her eyes sharp. She stepped closer, noting the man's pale face, his expensive coat, and the way his hand lay open, as if reaching for something. The pistol smelled faintly of smoke. "Who is he, Clara?" Miss Marple asked softly. Clara shook her head, tears spilling. I don't know him. He just came today. Said his name was John Reed, a friend of my late husband's. I didn't want to turn him away." Miss Marple's lips pressed thin. "A stranger, invited to tea, now dead. The newspaper ad had promised a murder, and here it was." She glanced around. Mrs. Fletcher was sobbing. Mr. Harris was pale, and Lucy was staring at the body, her eyes wide with something more than fear. Guilt, perhaps? Dr. Thompson stood, wiping his hands, his face unreadable. Miss Price muttered, "About disgraceful behaviour." "Someone call the police," Dr. Thompson said. "This is no accident." Miss Marple knelt by the body, her knees creaking. She didn't touch anything, but looked closely. A small tear in the man's coat pocket caught her eye, and a faint smudge of lipstick on his collar, red like Lucy's. She stood, her mind filing away details. The room was a puzzle, and every person in it a piece. Constable Evans arrived. Within minutes his round face flushed. He took one look at the body and groaned. "Right, nobody leave," he said, pulling out a notebook. "Mrs. Blackwood, what happened?" Clara repeated her story, her voice shaking. The guests chimed in, their words jumbled. "The lights went out. I heard a shot. He just fell." Miss Marple stayed quiet, watching. She noticed Lucy slip a handkerchief into her pocket, and how Mr. Harris kept glancing at the door. Dr. Thompson offered to help the constable, but his eyes flicked to Clara too often. "Miss Marple, Constable," Evans said, spotting her. "You've got a knack for these things. Any thoughts?" She smiled faintly. "Too early to say, Constable, but I'd like to know who placed that ad." He nodded, scribbling. "We'll check with the Gazette." Odd business, this. As the police questioned everyone, Miss Marple sipped her cold tea. The ad, the stranger, the shot in the dark. It was all too neat, like a play. She thought of village gossip. Clara's husband had left debts. Mrs. Fletcher loved secrets, and Lucy had been seen with a man in town. Small things, but small things mattered. Like the way a teacup's handle faced, or how a stranger knew to come to tea. The guests were sent home, told to stay in the village. Clara sat, pale and trembling, as Miss Marple offered her jam. "For your nerves, dear," she said kindly. Clara managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Miss Marple. I don't know what to think. A murder here." Miss Marple patted her hand. "We'll sort it out. Truth has a way of coming clear." As she walked home, the village dark and quiet, Miss Marple's mind buzzed. The ad was no prank. It was a lure, maybe a warning. John Reed, whoever he was, hadn't come to Rose Cottage by chance. Someone in that room knew him, and someone had pulled the trigger. Over tea, she'd find out who. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Village. The morning after the murder at Rose Cottage, St. Mary Mead hummed with gossip. Miss Marple sat at her breakfast table, a slice of toast untouched, her eyes on the garden where sparrows flitted among the roses. The St. Mary Mead Gazette lay open, its bold headline unchanged. "Murder announced." Her knitting rested in her lap, but her fingers were still, her mind piecing together the events of the previous evening. The shot, the dark, the stranger's body, John Reed, Clara had called him. Who was he, and why had someone wanted him dead? She sipped her tea, the cup warm in her hands. The village would be buzzing, and gossip, like tea leaves, could reveal much if read right. Miss Marple decided to visit the post office, where Mrs. Fletcher would surely be holding court. She pulled on her coat, tucked her hat in place, and stepped into the crisp October air. The village was awake, its narrow lanes alive with whispers. At the baker's, 2 women huddled, their voices low. "Shot right there at Clara's," one said. "I heard he was a spy," the other whispered. Miss Marple passed with a polite nod, her ears sharp. Spy? Unlikely, but stories grew legs in St. Mary Mead. The post office was a small brick building, its counter cluttered with stamps and parcels. Mrs. Fletcher, round-faced and eager, leaned toward a customer, her eyes bright with excitement. "I was there, you know," she said, her voice carrying. "Lights went out, bang, and there he was, dead as a doornail." Miss Marple stepped inside, her basket swinging. "Good morning, Mrs. Fletcher," she said, her smile gentle. "Quite a night at Rose Cottage, I hear." Mrs. Fletcher's cheeks flushed. "Oh, Miss Marple, it was dreadful. That poor man shot right in front of us, and Clara, pale as a ghost. I said to Mr. Harris, it's no wonder, with that awful ad in the paper." Miss Marple nodded, setting her basket on the counter. "The ad is curious. Did anyone at the Gazette say who placed it?" Mrs. Fletcher leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I asked Mr. Collins, the editor, this morning. He said it came by post with cash and no name. Typed, not handwritten. Very odd, don't you think?" "Very," Miss Marple said, her eyes thoughtful. "Typed, anonymous, paid in cash. Someone had planned this carefully." "Did you know this John Reed?" Mrs. Fletcher shook her head. "Never seen him before. Clara said he was her husband's friend, but she looked nervous when he arrived, and Lucy Hale, did you see her face? White as chalk when the body fell." Miss Marple's lips twitched. Mrs. Fletcher loved a story, but her observations were gold. Lucy's pale face, the lipstick on Reed's collar. Small threads, but they might weave a pattern. She bought a stamp, thanked Mrs. Fletcher, and stepped outside, her mind turning. Her next stop was the library, where Lucy Hale worked. The building was quiet, its shelves lined with dusty books. Lucy stood at the desk, sorting cards, her red hair loose today. Her hands moved quickly, but her eyes darted to the door, as if expecting trouble. "Good morning, Lucy," Miss Marple said, her voice kind. "I hope you're feeling better after last night." Lucy flinched, dropping a card. "Oh, Miss Marple, I'm fine, thank you. It was just so awful." Her voice was soft, but her fingers trembled. "It was," Miss Marple agreed, picking up the card and handing it back. "You didn't know Mr. Reed, did you?" Lucy's eyes flicked away. "No, never met him. He just showed up for tea." She busied herself with the cards, avoiding Miss Marple's gaze. Miss Marple smiled, noting the girl's unease. "Such a strange business, that ad. Almost like someone wanted us all there to see it." Lucy nodded, her lips tight. "I don't know why anyone would do that. It's cruel." Miss Marple thanked her and left, her mind filing away Lucy's nervous hands and quick denial. People lied for many reasons: fear, guilt, or something deeper. She thought of Village. Girls she'd known, like Mary, who'd hidden a romance until it unravelled in scandal. Lucy's red lipstick matched the smudge on Reed's collar. Coincidence? Perhaps. Back in the village square, Miss Marple saw Dr. Thompson leaving his office. His grey hair was neat, but his face looked tired, as if he hadn't slept. She waved, and he crossed the street, his smile polite but strained. "Miss Marple," he said, tipping his hat. "Terrible business at Clara's. I couldn't save the man. Bullet went straight through his heart." "Awful," Miss Marple said. "Did you notice anything odd before the lights went out?" He hesitated, his eyes narrowing. "It all happened so fast. The room was crowded, people talking. I was by the sherry, not near Reed, but Clara seemed jumpy when he arrived, kept glancing at him. Miss Marple nodded. She's had a shock. Did you know him? No, Dr. Thompson said quickly. Just a stranger to me. He excused himself, saying he had patients waiting. Miss Marple watched him go. His quick answer felt rehearsed, like a line from a play. She thought of old Dr. Haydock, who'd once hidden a patient's secret to protect a family. Doctors saw things others missed, but they also kept secrets. By noon, Miss Marple was back at Rose Cottage. Clara answered the door, her eyes red from crying. "Oh, Miss Marple, come in. The police were here all morning asking questions. I don't know what to do." The parlour looked different in daylight, less sinister, but still heavy with memory. The spot by the fireplace where Reed had fallen was clean, but Miss Marple could picture it. The body, the pistol, the chaos. She sat, accepting a cup of tea from Clara's shaky hands. "Constable Evans is doing his best," Miss Marple said. "But tell me, Clara, about Mr. Reed. You said he knew your husband." Clara nodded, her fingers twisting her apron. "Yes, Tom mentioned a John Reed years ago, a business friend. When he arrived yesterday, he said he was passing through and wanted to pay respects. I couldn't say no, not to Tom's friend." Miss Marple sipped her tea, watching Clara's face. Did he seem worried or angry? Clara hesitated, was quiet, kept looking around like he expected someone. I thought he was just shy. Miss Marple's eyes drifted to the fireplace. A small table stood nearby, where the pistol had lain. She noticed a faint scratch on the wood, barely visible. "Did the police take the pistol?" she asked. "Yes," Clara said. "They think it's the murder weapon. They're checking for fingerprints." Miss Marple nodded, her mind on the scratch. It was small, like something a ring or watch might make. She thought of the guests, Mrs. Fletcher's loud bangles, Lucy's bare hands, Dr. Thompson's gold watch. Small things, but they mattered. As she left, Constable Evans arrived, his notebook in hand. "Miss Marple," he said, "we traced the ad. The Gazette got it 3 days ago, typed and mailed from London. No leads yet." "Interesting," Miss Marple said. "Someone went to great trouble." He nodded. "We're questioning everyone. That Reed fellow had no papers on him, just a train ticket from London. We're checking his name." Miss Marple thanked him and walked home. The village, quiet now. Her mind spun like her knitting needles. The ad from London, Reed's sudden arrival, the pistol's scratch, pieces of a puzzle. She thought of village scandals, like the time Mrs. Price hid her brother's debts. Secrets always came out, over tea or time. At home, she sat by the fire, her tea cold. The murder wasn't random. Someone had planned it, lured Reed to Rose Cottage and pulled the trigger. Was it Clara, hiding grief behind tears? Lucy, with her nervous hands? Dr. Thompson, too quick to deny knowing Reed? Or someone else, watching from the shadows? Miss Marple picked up her knitting. The village held the answer in its whispers and glances. She'd listen, sip her tea, and wait. Truth, like a good brew, needed time to steep. Chapter 3. Shadows of Secrets. The afternoon sun hung low over St. Mary Mead, casting long shadows across the village green. Miss Marple sat in her garden, a shawl around her shoulders, her knitting needles clicking softly. The air carried the scent of damp leaves and wood smoke, but her mind was on Rose Cottage and the murder of John Reed. The newspaper ad, the pistol scratch, Lucy's nervous hands. Each detail was a thread in a tangled web. She sipped her tea, her eyes sharp, knowing the village held answers in its quiet corners. Today, she planned to visit Miss Emily Price, the sharp-tongued spinster who'd been at the tea party. Emily was a gossip, but her barbed words often cut close to the truth. If anyone had seen something odd that night, it would be her. Miss Marple tucked her knitting into her basket, adjusted her hat, and set off down the lane. The village was restless. At the grocer's, 2 women whispered about the murder, their eyes darting as Miss Marple passed. "They say he was a crook," one muttered. "Clara's mixed up in something dark," said the other. Miss Marple smiled politely, her ears catching every word. Rumours were like wind, wild, but they carried seeds of truth. Miss Price lived in a neat cottage, its windows framed with stiff curtains. She answered the door, her grey hair pulled tight, her eyes narrowing. "Miss Marple," she said, her voice sharp, "come to poke about that dreadful business at Clara's." "Just a chat, Emily," Miss Marple said, her tone mild. "May I come in?" Miss Price sniffed but stepped aside. The parlour was stiff like its owner, polished furniture, no speck of dust. A teapot sat ready, and Miss Marple accepted a cup, noting the bitter brew. Emily never stinted on tea leaves, but her hospitality was as sharp as her tongue. "That ad was nonsense," Emily said, sitting ramrod straight. "Announcing a murder. Clara's a fool to let that man in her house. John Reed, was it? Shifty eyes, if you ask me." Miss Marple sipped her tea, her face calm. "You noticed him, then? Did he speak to anyone?" Emily's lips pursed, kept to himself mostly, but I saw him watching Lucy Hale like a cat with a mouse, and Clara, she was all nerves when he walked in, kept fussing with her teapot. Miss Marple nodded, filing away the detail. "And when the lights went out?" Emily leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. "Chaos. Mrs. Fletcher shrieked like a banshee. I was by the window, and I heard a scuffle near the fireplace before the shot. Someone moved fast, I'd swear it." "A scuffle." Miss Marple's voice was soft, but her mind sharpened. "Did you see who?" "Too dark," Emily snapped. "But I'd wager it was that Lucy. She was near the fireplace fussing with cups. And that girl's no saint. Seen her sneaking about with some man in town." Miss Marple's needles paused in her mind, though her hands stayed still. Lucy, again, and that lipstick smudge on Reed's collar. "Interesting," she said. "Anyone else acting odd?" Emily snorted. "Dr. Thompson was too calm, if you ask me. Kept his distance, sipping sherry like it was a picnic. And Mr. Harris, the butcher, kept tugging his collar like he couldn't breathe." Miss Marple thanked her and left, her basket light but her thoughts heavy. Emily's words were sharp, but they cut through the fog. A scuffle, Lucy near the fireplace, Dr. Thompson's calm. Pieces of the puzzle, not yet whole. Her next stop was the church, where Mr. Harris often helped with the grounds. She found him raking leaves, his broad shoulders hunched. His face, usually red from work, was pale, and his hands gripped the rake too tightly. "Good afternoon, Mr. Harris," Miss Marple said, her smile warm. "A sad business at Rose Cottage." He flinched, his eyes darting. "Awful, Miss Marple. Never seen anything like it. That poor man, shot dead." "You were near the door, weren't you?" she asked, her tone gentle. "Did you see anything before the lights went out?" He shook his head too quickly. "No, nothing. Just people talking, eating scones. Then the bang, and he was gone." His voice cracked and he raked faster, leaves flying. Miss Marple watched him. Fear, she thought, or guilt. She remembered a village boy years ago who'd stolen apples and shook the same way when questioned. The ad was strange, she said, almost like someone wanted trouble. Mr. Harris muttered, "Who'd do such a thing? It's mad." But his eyes stayed on the ground. She thanked him and walked on, her mind turning. Mr. Harris was hiding something. But what? A debt, a grudge, a secret. She thought of Clara's husband, Tom Blackwood, and his business dealings. Had Reed been part of that world? Back in the village, Miss Marple passed the Gazette office and decided to stop. Mr. Collins, the editor, was a thin man with ink-stained fingers. He looked up as she entered, his glasses slipping down his nose. "Miss Marple," he said, "hear about that ad, I bet. Constable Evans already asked." I told him. It came by post from London, typed, with £5 in cash. No name, no address. "Curious," Miss Marple said. "Did the envelope have anything else? A mark, perhaps?" He frowned, thinking. "Now you mention it, there was a smudge, red like wax. I thought it was lipstick, but it was hard, like a seal." Miss Marple's heart quickened, though her face stayed calm. "Lipstick again? Or something else? Thank you, Mr. Collins. Most helpful." As she left, the village clock struck 4. She headed to Rose Cottage, hoping to catch Clara alone. The cottage looked tired in the fading light, its roses drooping. Clara opened the door, her face pale, her apron wrinkled. "Miss Marple," she said, her voice faint. "The police keep coming. They think I knew Reed better than I said." Miss Marple stepped inside, the parlour still smelling of lavender and fear. "Clara, dear, tell me about Tom's business. Did he ever mention Reed in trouble?" Clara sank into a chair, her hands twisting. "Tom never talked much about work. He dealt with imports, I think. Reed's name came up once, years ago, something about a deal gone wrong. But I never met him until Friday." Miss Marple nodded, her eyes on a photograph on the mantel. A younger Clara, with a stern man, likely Tom. "And the tea party? Did Reed say anything odd?" Clara hesitated. "He asked about Lucy, said he'd heard she was clever. I thought it was just talk, but he kept watching her." Miss Marple's mind clicked. Lucy, Reed, the lipstick, the scuffle. She noticed a small vase on the table, its base scratched, like the table by the fireplace. "Clara," she said, "did anyone move this vase that night?" Clara blinked. "I don't know. Lucy was tidying up. Maybe she moved it." Miss Marple stood, her basket in hand. "Rest, dear. We'll find the truth." As she walked home, the village settled into dusk. The ad from London, the red smudge, Lucy's nerves, Harris's fear, Thompson's calm, each was a clue, small but sharp. She thought of a village wedding years ago, where a stolen ring was found because of a scratched table. Details mattered. At home she lit the fire and poured tea. The murder was no accident. Someone had lured Reed to Rose Cottage, known he'd be there, and fired the shot. Was it Lucy, tied to Reed by lipstick and secrets? Harris, hiding a debt? Or Clara, masking grief with fear? Miss Marple's needles clicked, her mind weaving. Tomorrow she'd watch closer, listen harder. Over tea the truth would stir. Chapter 4. The Weight of Silence. The next morning St. Mary Mead woke under a grey sky, the air heavy with the promise of rain. Miss Marple sat by her parlour window, her knitting untouched, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. The murder at Rose Cottage lingered in her thoughts, each clue a knot she couldn't yet untie. The red smudge on the ad's envelope, the scratched vase, Lucy's trembling hands, Mr. Harris's fear, small things, but they pointed somewhere. She knew the village's quiet streets hid loud secrets, and today she'd listen for them and moo. So Marple decided to start at the vicarage, where the vicar, Mr. Clement, often heard confessions of sorts. Village worries spilled over tea. She pulled on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, her basket swinging lightly. The village was subdued, shops open but voices hushed. At the butcher's, Mr. Harris's shutters were half closed, a sign he was unwell, or avoiding eyes. Miss Marple noted it, her mind sharp. The vicarage was a rambling house, its garden wild with late roses. Mr. Clement, a gentle man with a tired smile, welcomed her into his study, where books spilled from shelves. "Miss Marple," he said, pouring tea, "this murder has shaken us all. Poor Clara, to have such horror in her home." "It's dreadful," Miss Marple agreed, accepting a cup. "Have you heard anything, Mr. Clement? People talk to you." He sighed, stirring his tea. "They do. Mrs. Fletcher stopped by, full of tales. Says Reed was a gambler, owed money everywhere. And young Lucy Hale came yesterday, looking ill. She didn't say much, just asked for a prayer." Miss Marple's eyes flickered. "Lucy? Was she upset?" "Very," Mr. Clement said. "Kept twisting her scarf, like she was afraid. I didn't press her. Girls like Lucy don't open up easily." Miss Marple nodded, thinking of Lucy's pale face at the tea party, the lipstick smudge on Reed's collar. "And Mr. Harris? He's been quiet since Friday." Mr. Clement frowned. He missed choir practice, which isn't like him. "I saw him at the church, though, staring at the gravestones. Looked like a man with a weight on his soul." Miss Marple sipped her tea, her mind weaving. A weight, guilt perhaps, or fear of being found out. She thanked Mr. Clement and left, her steps slow but purposeful. The vicar's words added threads to her pattern: Lucy's fear, Harris's silence, rumours of Reed's debts. Her next stop was the library, hoping to catch Lucy alone. The building was dim, its windows streaked with drizzle. Lucy stood behind the desk, shelving books, her red, hair tied back but strands loose, as if she'd slept poorly. Her eyes widened when she saw Miss Marple. "Miss Marple," she said, her voice tight, "what brings you here?" "Just browsing," Miss Marple said, her smile kind. She picked up a novel, flipping pages slowly. "You must be shaken, dear, after Friday." Lucy's hands froze on a book. "It was horrible. I keep seeing him. On the floor." Her voice broke, and she looked away. Miss Marple stepped closer, her tone soft. "You were near the fireplace, weren't you?" "Tidying cups," Miss Price said. Lucy's cheeks flushed. Yes, I was helping Clara. It was crowded, everyone moving about. Did you notice Mr. Reed? Miss Marple asked. He seemed interested in you. Lucy's eyes darted to the door. He didn't talk to me, just said hello, that's all. She clutched the book tighter, her knuckles white. Miss Marple smiled, noting the lie in Lucy's quick words. She thought of a village girl, years ago, who'd hidden letters from a lover until they spilled a scandal. If you remember anything, dear, tell Constable Evans. Small things matter. Lucy nodded, her lips pressed thin. Miss Marple left, the drizzle cold on her face. Lucy was hiding something, fear or a secret tied to Reed. That lipstick smudge wasn't chance. As she walked, Miss Marple passed Dr. Thompson's office. On impulse, she knocked. He opened the door, his face weary, his tie slightly askew. "Miss Marple," he said, "come in, please." His office smelled of antiseptic, papers stacked neatly on his desk. He offered her a chair, but no tea, his hands restless. "The police questioned me again," he said. "They think I saw something, but I was too far from Reed." "You were calm that night," Miss Marple said, her eyes gentle but sharp. "Not everyone can stay steady after a murder." Dr. Thompson's jaw tightened. "I've seen death before. It's my job. But this, it's different. That ad, the shot, it was planned." Miss Marple nodded. "Did you know Reed, Doctor? Even slightly?" He shook his head too fast. "No, just a stranger at Clara's tea." But his fingers tapped the desk, a nervous rhythm. Miss Marple thanked him and left, her mind on that tap-tap-tap. Dr. Thompson was guarded like a man with a locked drawer. She remembered a village doctor, long ago, who'd covered for a patient's crime out of pity. Was Thompson hiding something similar? By afternoon, the rain had started, soft but steady. Miss Marple headed to Rose Cottage, her umbrella up. Clara answered, her eyes hollow, a shawl clutched around her. "Miss Marple," she said, "I can't sleep. They keep asking about Tom, about Reed." Miss Marple stepped inside, the parlour dim and cold. "Clara, dear, tell me more about Tom's business. Any trouble with Reed?" Clara sat, her hands wringing. "Tom dealt with shipments, wine, fabrics, I think. Once he came home angry, said Reed cheated him on a deal. But it was years ago, before we moved here." Miss Marple's eyes drifted to the mantel, where the photograph of Tom stood. Next to it was a small brass clock, its base scratched faintly, like the vase and table. "Did Reed mention that deal on Friday?" "No," Clara said. "He just smiled, said he missed Tom, but he kept looking at Lucy, like he knew her." Miss Marple's heart quickened. Another link to Lucy. "And the vase," she said, pointing to the scratched one. "Was it always there?" Clara frowned. "I think Lucy moved it that night. She was so helpful, tidying up." Miss Marple stood, her basket heavy with thoughts. "Rest, Clara. We're getting closer." Outside, the rain pattered on her umbrella. She stopped by the Gazette office again, where Mr. Collins was locking up. "Any news on that ad?" "She asked." He shook his head. "Police checked the London postmark, too common to trace. But I remembered something. The paper was thick, like fancy stationery, not cheap." Miss Marple thanked him, her mind racing. Fancy paper, a red smudge, a typed ad, someone with means, not a villager. She thought of Reed's expensive coat, his train ticket from London. Was he the target or part of the plan? Back home, Miss Marple lit the fire, the room warm against the rain's chill. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like a clock. The clues piled up. Lucy's fear, Harris's silence, Thompson's nerves, Clara's grief, the scratched objects, the ad's mystery. She thought of a village theft years ago, solved by a scratched spoon that pointed to a maid's ring. Small marks told big stories. The murder was deliberate, the ad a lure to bring Reed to his death. But why? A debt, a betrayal, a hidden love, Lucy's lipstick, Harris's fear, Thompson's calm. Each held a piece. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed. Tomorrow she'd press harder over tea and talk. The truth was close, like steam rising from a cup. Chapter 5. Threads of Truth Rain tapped the windows of Miss Marple's cottage as dawn broke over St. Mary Mead, the village cloaked in a damp mist. She sat by the fire, her knitting idle, a fresh cup of tea steaming in her hands. The murder of John Reed at Rose Cottage was a puzzle with too many pieces. Lucy's fear, Mr. Harris's silence, Dr. Thompson's nervous tap, the scratched clock, and that strange ad on fancy paper. Each clue was a thread, and Miss Marple felt them starting to weave together. Today she'd tug harder, seeking the pattern. She decided to visit the village shop, where gossip flowed as freely as tea. Mrs. Fletcher, the postmistress, would be there, eager to share. Miss Marple slipped on her coat, pinned her hat against the drizzle, and stepped out, her basket light, but her mind heavy with questions. The village was quiet, the rain keeping folks indoors, but eyes peeked from windows, watching her pass. The shop smelled of bread and soap, its shelves packed with tins and jars. Mrs. Fletcher stood behind the counter, her round face alight with excitement as she chatted with a customer. "It's a scandal," she said, her voice loud. "Reed was no good, mark my words. I heard he owed money to dangerous sorts in London." Miss Marple approached, her smile gentle. "Good morning, Mrs. Fletcher. Still talking about poor Mr. Reed?" Mrs. Fletcher's eyes gleamed. "Oh, Miss Marple, it's all anyone talks about. I was telling Mrs. Lane here. I saw Reed at the station before the tea party. He was arguing with a man, tall in a grey coat, looked heated." Miss Marple's heart quickened, though her face stayed calm. "Arguing? Did you hear anything?" Mrs. Fletcher leaned closer, her voice a whisper. "Not much, but Reed said, 'You'll get your money, just wait.' Then the man stormed off. I told Constable Evans, but he says it's hard to trace." "Sure." Marple nodded, filing the detail away. A man in a grey coat, a debt, new threads in the web. "And at the tea party, did you notice Reed with anyone?" Mrs. Fletcher frowned. He kept to himself, but he was watching Lucy Hale. And Clara, she nearly dropped the teapot when he walked in. Oh, and Dr. Thompson was odd, standing by the sherry, staring like he knew something. Miss Marple thanked her and bought a tin of biscuits, her mind racing. Mrs. Fletcher's chatter was a gold mine, but it needed sifting. She thought of a village dance, years ago, where a whispered argument led to a stolen necklace. Eavesdropping caught truth. Her next stop was the police station, a small building by the square. Constable Evans was at his desk, papers scattered, his face tired. "Miss Marple," he said, standing, "you've got a nose for these things. Any ideas?" She smiled, setting her basket down. "Just thoughts, Constable. Have you learned more about Mr. Reed?" He sighed. "Not much. His ticket was from London, but no record of him there. No family, no address. Like he appeared from nowhere. The pistol had no prints, wiped clean." Miss Marple's eyes narrowed. "And the ad? Mr. Collins mentioned fancy paper, a red smudge." Evans nodded. "We're checking, but London's a big place. The smudge was wax, not lipstick, maybe a seal. Odd for a village prank." "Very odd," Miss Marple said. Wax, not lipstick. Her mind adjusted the pattern. "Have you questioned Lucy Hale again? She was near the fireplace." Evans rubbed his chin. "She's nervous, says she saw nothing. But I'll talk to her again. And Mr. Harris, he's been off, closed his shop early." Miss Marple thanked him and left, the rain heavier now, Lucy's nerves, Harris's absence, signs of guilt or fear. She decided to visit Mr. Harris's butcher shop, hoping to catch him unawares. The shop was dark, its sign turned to closed, but a light flickered inside. She knocked, and after a pause, Mr. Harris opened the door, his apron stained, his eyes red. "Miss Marple," he muttered, "not a good time." "Just a moment," she said, her voice kind but firm. "You've been quiet since Friday. Something troubling you?" He shifted, his hands fidgeting. "It's nothing. Just the murder shook me. Never seen a man die like that." Miss Marple watched him closely. "You were near the door, Mr. Harris. Did you see Reed with anyone? Or hear that scuffle Miss Price mentioned?" His face paled. "No, nothing. It was dark, everyone shouting. I just wanted out." He stepped back, shutting the door. Miss Marple stood in the rain, her umbrella steady. Harris was scared, like a boy caught stealing years ago in the village. She thought of his closed shop, his red eyes. Was he running from something? Her final stop was Rose Cottage. Clara answered, her face drawn, a scarf tight around her shoulders. "Miss Marple," she said, "I'm so tired of questions. The police think I'm hiding something." Miss Marple stepped inside, the parlour cold despite the fire. "Clara, dear, tell me about Reed's visit. Did he mention anyone else? A man in a grey coat, perhaps?" Clara's eyes widened. "A grey coat? No, but Reed did say something. Odd. He asked if I'd seen the old crowd from Tom's business days. I thought he meant friends, but he looked worried." Miss Marple's mind clicked. The old crowd, Tom's business, Reed's debts, the grey-coated man. "And Lucy," she said, "you said Reed watched her. Did they speak?" Clara hesitated. "Not much. He asked her about books, said he liked reading." She smiled, but she was nervous, kept dropping things. Miss Marple's eyes fell on the scratched clock on the mantel, then the vase, then the table by the fireplace. All scratched, all near where Reed fell. "Clara," she said, "did you move these things after the tea party?" Clara shook her head. "No, I've been too upset. Lucy tidied that night, though." Miss Marple nodded, her basket heavy as she left. The scratches were a clue, like a maid's ring that once betrayed a thief. Lucy was at the centre, her fear, her tidying, the lipstick that wasn't wax. But why? Back home, the rain drummed the roof. Miss Marple lit the fire, poured tea, and sat, her knitting resumed. The clues were piling up. Reed's argument with a grey-coated man, the wax-sealed ad, Lucy's lies, Harris's fear, Thompson's calm, the scratched objects. She thought of a village scandal years ago, where a scratched watch pointed to a lover's quarrel, small marks, big truths. She closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Reed by the fireplace, Lucy nearby, the lights out, a scuffle, a shot. Someone moved fast, someone knew the room. Lucy tidying, scratching surfaces with, what? A ring? A bracelet? And the ad, fancy paper, a wax seal from London, like Reed's ticket. Miss Marple's needles clicked faster. The murder was a trap, Reed lured by the ad, killed by someone close. Lucy's fear suggested a connection, love, blackmail, or betrayal. Harris's silence hinted at a debt or threat. Thompson's calm could hide knowledge. Clara's grief felt real. But was it? She sipped her tea, the fire warm. Tomorrow she'd invite Lucy for tea. Watch her hands, her eyes. The truth was near, like sugar dissolving in a cup. Over tea it would surface. Chapter 6. A crack in the facade. The rain had stopped, leaving St. Mary Mead damp and gleaming under a pale morning sun. Miss Marple sat in her parlour, her knitting needles clicking softly, a fresh pot of tea steaming on the table. The murder of John Reed at Rose Cottage was a web of secrets, and she felt the threads tightening. Lucy's nervous lies, Mr. Harris's fear, Dr. Thompson's guarded calm, the scratched objects and the wax-sealed ad from London. Today she'd invite Lucy for tea, watch her closely, and target the truth. Miss Marple wrote a note, her handwriting neat. Dear Lucy, please join me for tea at 3 p.m. A chat might ease your mind. Jane Marple. She sent it with a neighbour's boy, then settled back, her mind tracing the clues. The grey-coated man at the station, Reed's debts, the scratches. Each was a piece, but the picture was still blurry. She thought of a village quarrel years ago, where a nervous girl's fidgeting betrayed her theft. Small habits revealed big truths. The village was stirring as Miss Marple stepped out to the post office to buy stamps, a pretext to listen. Mrs. Fletcher was there, her voice loud as she told a customer, I heard Reed was mixed up with smugglers. Clara's husband knew shady types, you know. Miss Marple smiled, buying her stamps, her ears sharp. Smugglers. Gossip, perhaps, but it echoed Clara's talk of Tom's import business. Back home, she prepared for Lucy's visit, setting out, her best china and a plate of shortbread. At 3 p.m, Lucy arrived, her red hair tucked under a scarf, her face pale. Miss Marple, she said, her voice shaky, thank you for inviting me. Sit, dear, Miss Marple said, pouring tea. You've had a shock. Tea helps. Lucy took the cup, her hands trembling, the saucer clinking. Miss Marple watched, noting a silver bracelet on Lucy's wrist, its edge sharp and worn. How are you holding up, Lucy? That night at Rose Cottage was dreadful. Lucy's eyes flicked down. I can't stop thinking about it. That man, just falling like that. She sipped her tea, spilling a drop. Miss Marple's voice was gentle. You were near the fireplace tidying. Did you see Reed before the lights went out? Lucy's bracelet scraped the table, leaving a faint mark. I was busy with cups. I didn't notice him much. Her voice was too quick, her eyes avoiding Miss Marple's. Miss Marple smiled, offering shortbread. "He seemed to know you. Dear, asked Clara about you," she said. Lucy's cheeks flushed. "He just said hello, asked about books. I don't know why he'd care about me." Her bracelet scraped again, and Miss Marple's eyes sharpened. The scratches on the table, vase, clock, matched that bracelet's edge. "You're good at tidying," Miss Marple said. "Clara said you moved things that night. The vase, perhaps." Lucy froze, her cup halfway to her lips. I just straightened up. Clara was so nervous." Her voice cracked, and she set the cup down, the saucer rattling. Miss Marple leaned forward, her tone soft. "Lucy, dear, if you know something, tell me. Small things matter, like a word, a look, or a bracelet." Lucy's hand flew to her wrist, covering the bracelet. "I don't know anything," she said, too loud. "I didn't do anything." She stood, her scarf slipping, revealing a red mark on her neck, like a burn or a bruise. Miss Marple's heart quickened, but her face stayed calm. "Sit, dear. No one's accusing you. But truth helps, always." Lucy sank back, tears welling. I can't. It's too much." She grabbed her scarf and fled, the door banging shut. Miss Marple sat back, her tea cold. Lucy's bracelet, her fear, that mark on her neck. Clues screaming for attention. She thought of a village girl, years ago, whose nervous habits hid a stolen brooch. Lucy was scared, not just of the murder, but of something or someone else. She decided to visit Dr. Thompson, hoping his medical eye might explain Lucy's mark. His office was busy, but he saw her at once, his face strained. "Miss Marple," he said, "I'm swamped, but come in." The office was tidy, the air sharp with antiseptic. Miss Marple sat, her basket on her lap. "Doctor, I saw Lucy Hale today. She had a mark on her neck, red like a burn. Have you treated her lately?" Dr. Thompson's hands stilled on his papers. "Lucy? No, not recently." "A burn, you say? Could be anything. Hot tea, a tight collar." His voice was steady, but his eyes flicked away. Miss Marple nodded. "You were calm at the tea party, Doctor. Most people panic when a man's shot." He shrugged, his fingers tapping that nervous rhythm. "I'm used to emergencies. I checked Reed, but he was gone. Nothing I could do." "Did you notice Lucy near him?" she asked. "Or anyone else?" He hesitated. It was dark, chaotic. "I saw Lucy tidying, yes, but nothing odd. Reed was alone, I think. His tapping grew faster." Miss Marple thanked him and left, her mind on that tap, tap, tap. Dr. Thompson was hiding something, like a village doctor she'd known, who'd kept a patient's secret too long. Was he protecting Lucy? Or himself? Her next stop was the police station. Constable Evans was on the phone, his voice low. He hung up as she entered, his face grim. "Miss Marple, we got something on Reed. London police say he was John Reedman, not Reed. A smuggler, small-time, owed money to rough types. No wonder someone shot him." Miss Marple's eyes brightened. "And the grey-coated man Mrs. Fletcher saw?" Evans shook his head. "No trace yet. But we found a letter in Reed's coat, torn, just a scrap. It said, 'Meet me at the cottage or else,' typed like the ad." Miss Marple's heart raced. "On fancy paper. Yes, Evans said. Same kind, with a wax smudge. We're checking for prints. Miss Marple nodded, her mind spinning. A typed letter, a wax seal, a smuggler's debts, linked to the ad. She thought of the scratches, Lucy's bracelet, her fear. "Have you seen Lucy today?" she asked. "Not yet," Evans said. "She's due in tomorrow. Why?" "Just a thought," Miss Marple said. "She's shaken. Keep an eye on her." As she walked home, the village glowed in the fading light, wet leaves shining. She passed Mr. Harris's shop, still closed, a shadow moving inside. Was he hiding, or hiding something? She thought of a village boy, caught lying about a stolen bike, his eyes like Harris's, scared, trapped. At home, Miss Marple lit the fire, the room warm against the damp. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like a pulse. The clues were clearer now. Reed, a smuggler, lured by a typed letter and ad, killed at Clara's. Lucy's bracelet scratched the furniture. Her fear tied her to Reed, perhaps a lover or a victim of his debts. Harris's silence screamed guilt. Thompson's calm hid knowledge, and Clara's grief might mask more. She closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Reed by the fireplace, Lucy tidying, the lights out, a scuffle, a shot. The scratches marked Lucy's path, her bracelet a silent witness. The letter and ad, both typed, both fancy, pointed to someone clever, someone from outside the village, or someone hiding wealth. Miss Marple's needles slowed. Lucy was key, her fear a crack in the facade. Tomorrow she'd press Clara again, ask about Tom's old crowd, the smugglers. The truth was close, like tea leaves settling in a cup. Over one more chat, it would spill. Chapter 7. The Hidden Link. The morning sun broke through the mist over St. Mary Mead, casting a soft glow on the village's wet cobblestones. Miss Marple sat in her parlour, her knitting needles still, a cup of tea warming her hands. The murder of John Reed, revealed as John Reedman, a smuggler, gnawed at her thoughts. Lucy's bracelet, its scratches matching those on Clara's furniture, her fear, and that red mark on her neck were loud clues. The typed letter, the wax-sealed ad, Mr. Harris's silence, and Dr. Thompson's nervous calm wove a tighter web. Today, Miss Marple would press Clara for more about Tom's past, hoping to find the hidden link. She slipped on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, her basket light, but her mind heavy. The village was waking, shopkeepers sweeping doorsteps, their glances cautious. Gossip about Reed's smuggler past had spread, and eyes followed Miss Marple as she passed the butcher's, still closed. Mr. Harris's absence was a shadow, heavy, with meaning. Her first stop was the church, where Mr. Clement was tending roses. His kind face brightened. "Miss Marple, you're early today. Still thinking about Rose Cottage?" "Always," she said, her smile gentle. "Mr. Clement, you mentioned Lucy's visit. Did she say anything about Reed, or someone troubling her?" He frowned, clipping a rose. "Not directly. She asked for a prayer for someone lost. I thought she meant Reed, but her eyes were scared, like she was trapped." Miss Marple nodded, her mind on Lucy's red mark. "Mr. Harris, you saw him at the gravestones?" Mr. Clement sighed. "Yes, yesterday. He was by Tom Blackwood's grave, muttering. Looked like he hadn't slept in days, Miss Marple. thanked him, her thoughts racing. Harris at Tom's grave, linked to Clara's husband, perhaps to Reed's smuggling. She thought of a village feud years ago, where a man's guilt showed in his visits to a churchyard. Small acts betrayed big secrets. Next, she headed to Rose Cottage. Clara answered, her face pale, her hands clutching a dishcloth. "Miss Marple," she said, her voice thin, "the police keep asking about Tom. I don't know what to tell them." Miss Marple stepped inside, the parlour dim, the scratched clock ticking loudly. "Clara, dear, tell me about Tom's business. You said Reed cheated him. Was there anyone else involved? A man in a grey coat, perhaps?" Clara sank into a chair, her eyes distant. Tom worked with a group, imports he called it. Wine, silks, but I heard whispers of other things, not legal. Once he argued with a man in London. Tall, wore a grey coat. Tom said he was dangerous, owed money. Reed was there too, part of it. Miss Marple's heart quickened. Did Reed mention this man at the tea party? No, Clara said, but he asked about Tom's old crowd, like he was checking who I knew. It scared me. Miss Marple's eyes drifted to the scratched vase, then the table. Clara, did Lucy ever mention a man, or wear that bracelet often? Clara frowned. Her bracelet? Yes, she's had it forever. Silver, a bit sharp. As for a man, she's been quiet lately, but I saw her once in town, talking to someone in a grey coat. I thought it was nothing. Miss Marple's mind clicked. Lucy, the grey-coated man, the bracelet scratches. Thank you, Clara. Rest now. As she left, she passed the library, but Lucy wasn't there. A note on the door read, "Closed early." Miss Marple's lips pressed thin. Lucy was running or hiding. She thought of a village girl years ago who'd vanished after a theft, caught later by a single clue, a scratched locket. Her next stop was Dr. Thompson's office. He was alone, sorting files, his face tired. "Miss Marple," he said, "you're persistent." "Just curious," she said, sitting. "Doctor, you said Lucy hadn't been treated recently. But that mark on her neck, could it be from pressure, like a hand?" His fingers froze, his eyes sharp. "A hand? Possible, but I'd need to see it. Why do you ask?" "She's scared," Miss Marple said. "And you were watching her at the tea party, weren't you?" Dr. Thompson's jaw tightened. "I watch everyone. It was a crowded room, Miss Marple. I saw nothing odd." But his hands tapped that nervous rhythm again. She thanked him and left, her mind on his evasion. He knew something, about Lucy, or Reed, or both. She remembered a village doctor who'd lied to protect a patient's affair. Was Thompson shielding someone? By noon, Miss Marple reached the police station. Constable Evans was eating a sandwich, papers strewn across his desk. "Miss Marple," he said, "we're stuck. Reedman's a ghost. No family, just debts. That letter's our only lead, but no prints." "And Lucy?" she asked. "Did she come in?" Evans shook his head. "Not yet. Her flat's empty. Neighbours say she left this morning. We're looking." Miss Marple's heart sank. Lucy, gone. And Mr. Harris? "Still closed up," Evans said. "We checked his shop, found a receipt from London, dated last week. He was there, same day the ad was mailed." Miss Marple's eyes widened. "Harris in London, the ad's origin. "Interesting," she said. "Keep looking for Lucy, Constable. She's frightened." As she walked home, the village felt tense, clouds gathering again. She passed Mr. Harris's shop, its shutters tight, but a faint light glowed inside. She knocked, but no answer came. Harris was hiding, like Lucy. She thought of a village scandal, where a man's absence betrayed his guilt over stolen goods. At home, Miss Marple lit the fire, the room cosy against the chill. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like thoughts. The clues were sharp now. Read, a smuggler, lured by a typed letter and ad, killed by someone who knew him. Lucy's bracelet scratched Clara's furniture. Her fear and neck, Mark tied her to Read. Perhaps a lover, or a victim of blackmail. Harris's trip to London, his silence at Tom's grave, suggested a debt ordeal. Thompson's calm hid knowledge, perhaps of Lucy's mark. Clara's grief seemed real, but her link to Tom's shady past lingered. Miss Marple closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Read by the fireplace, Lucy tidying, her bracelet scraping, the lights out, a scuffle, a shot. The grey-coated man, seen with Read and Lucy, was a shadow, perhaps the ad's sender. The wax seal, the fancy paper pointed to wealth, not a villager's means. Her needles slowed. Lucy's flight was a crack, Harris's silence a weight. Tomorrow she'd search for Lucy, press Harris, and watch Thompson. The truth was near, like a teapot's steam, ready to spill over one last cup. Chapter 8. The trail of fear. The morning mist clung to St. Mary Mead, wrapping the village in a soft grey veil. Miss Marple sat by her parlour fire, her knitting needles quiet, a cup of tea steaming in her hands. The murder of John Reedman, the smuggler, was a puzzle nearing its end. Lucy's flight, her bracelet scratches, the red mark on her neck, Mr. Harris's silence at Tom's grave, Dr. Thompson's guarded eyes, and the typed letter with its wax seal, all pointed to a truth, buried in the village's quiet corners. Today Miss Marple would follow Lucy's trail, press Mr. Harris, and unravel the hidden link. She slipped on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, her basket light, but her thoughts heavy. The village was hushed, the air damp, shop fronts dim under the mist. Gossip about Lucy's absence buzzed. Mrs. Fletcher had told the baker she'd seen Lucy at the station, a bag in hand. Miss Marple's lips pressed thin. Lucy was running, but from what? Fear, guilt, or a grey-coated man? Her first stop was the station, a small platform where trains to London rattled through. Mr. Porter, the station master, was sweeping leaves, his cap low. "Morning, Miss Marple," he said, pausing. "Heard about Lucy? Poor girl, bolting like that." Miss Marple smiled, her eyes sharp. "Did you see her, Mr. Porter? Yesterday, perhaps?" He nodded, leaning on his broom. "Aye, she was here early. Bought a ticket to London, looked scared. Kept glancing over her shoulder, like someone was after her." "Alone?" Miss Marple asked. "Far as I saw," he said. "But there was a man, tall, grey coat, on the platform. Didn't board, just watched her train leave." Miss Marple's heart quickened. The grey-coated man again. "Did you know him?" Mr. Porter shook his head. "Stranger. Had a city look, fancy shoes. Didn't talk to Lucy, just stood there." She thanked him and walked on, her mind racing. Lucy fleeing to London, the grey-coated man watching, linked to Reedman's debts, perhaps the ad's sender. She thought of a village girl, years ago, who'd run after a theft, caught by a train ticket stub. Small clues led to big truths. Next, she headed to Mr. Harris's butcher shop. The shutters were still closed, but a faint clatter came from inside. She knocked, her rap sharp. After a long pause, Mr. Harris opened the door, his face pale, his apron crumpled. "Miss Marple," he muttered, "I'm busy." "Just a word," she said, her voice kind but firm. "You've been quiet, Mr. Harris, and at Tom Blackwood's." "Grave?" Mr. Clement said. "Something troubling you?" His eyes darted, his hands gripping the door. "Nothing. Just paying respects." Tom was a friend. Miss Marple's gaze softened, but her mind was sharp. Tom's business with Reedman. Was it trouble? Debts, perhaps? Harris flinched, his voice low. Tom dealt with rough types. Reedman was one. I helped sometimes, deliveries, nothing more. But I'm done with it. He shut the door, the lock clicking. Miss Marple stood in the mist, her umbrella up. Harris's fear screamed guilt, tied to Tom's smuggling, to Reedman. She thought of a village man, caught years ago in a poaching ring, his silence betraying him. Harris knew more than he said. Her next stop was Dr. Thompson's office. He was with a patient, but his nurse let Miss Marple wait. The office smelled of antiseptic, its shelves neat with bottles. When Dr. Thompson appeared, his face was drawn, his eyes wary. "Miss Marple," he said, "you're back. A question, doctor," she said, sitting. Lucy's mark. Could it be from a struggle? With Reedman, perhaps? His fingers tapped his desk, that nervous rhythm. A struggle? I'd need to see it. Lucy's not my patient now. Why do you keep asking about her? "She's gone," Miss Marple said. "To London, scared. You saw her at the tea party near Reedman. Did they speak?" He shook his head, too quick. "No, I told you, it was chaotic. I was by the sherry, far from them." His tapping grew faster. Miss Marple nodded, her eyes gentle. "You're careful, doctor, but small things matter. A look, a word." He stood, his voice sharp. "I've patients waiting." She thanked him and left, her mind on his nerves. He was hiding something, like a village doctor she'd known, who'd covered a patient's crime for loyalty. By noon, Miss Marple reached the police station. Constable Evans was on the phone, his voice tense. He hung up, rubbing his eyes. "Miss Marple, we found Lucy's address in London, a boarding house. London police are checking, and Harris, he's got no alibi for the tea party. Says he was by the door, but no one saw him." Miss Marple's eyes brightened. "And the letter in Reedman's coat? Any more on it?" Evans nodded. "A partial print, not Reedman's, not in our records. The wax seal had a faint mark, like a crest. We're tracing it." Miss Marple's heart raced. A crest, wealth, not a villager's touch. "And Clara? Any news?" "She's shaken," Evans said. "Found a photo in her attic. Tom with Reedman and a man in a grey coat years ago. She says it's from Tom's business days." Miss Marple's mind clicked. The grey-coated man, tied to Tom Reedman, and now Lucy. "Keep looking for Lucy, Constable. She's the key." As she walked home, the mist thickened, the village ghostly. She passed Rose Cottage, its windows dark. Clara's photo linked Tom's past to the murder. But how? She thought of a village scandal, where a photo revealed a hidden affair. Pictures spoke louder than words. At home, Miss Marple lit the fire, the room warm against the damp. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like a clock. The clues were sharp. Reedman, a smuggler, lured by a typed letter and ad, killed by someone close. Lucy's bracelet scratched Clara's furniture. Her flight to London screamed fear. Of the grey-coated man, perhaps? Harris's silence tied him to Tom's smuggling, his London trip to the ad. Thompson's calm hid knowledge, maybe of Lucy's mark. Clara's grief seemed real, but her link to Tom's shady crowd lingered. Miss Marple closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Reedman, by the fireplace, Lucy tidying, her bracelet scraping, the lights out, a scuffle, a shot. The grey-coated man, seen with Reedman and Lucy, was the shadow. Perhaps the ad's sender, the letter's writer. The wax seal's crest hinted at wealth, power. Her needle slowed. Lucy's fear, Harris's guilt, Thompson's secrecy, each was a crack. Tomorrow she'd visit Clara, see that photo, and wait for news of Lucy. The truth was close, like tea leaves swirling in a cup, ready to settle. Chapter 9. The Shadow Moves. The afternoon sun peeked through the thinning mist over St. Mary Mead, casting faint shadows on the village lanes. Miss Marple sat in her parlour, her knitting needles still, a cup of tea cooling in her hands. The murder of John Reedman, the smuggler, was a knot tightening with each clue. Lucy's flight to London, her bracelet's scratches, the red mark on her neck, Mr. Harris's guilt at Tom's grave, Dr. Thompson's evasive eyes, and the typed letter with its wax-sealed crest. The grey-coated man, a shadow linking Reedman, Lucy, and Tom's past, loomed larger. Today, Miss Marple would see Clara's photo, press for news of Lucy, and follow the trail to its source. She slipped on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, her basket light, but her mind heavy with threads. The village was stirring, shopkeepers chatting, their voices low with talk of Lucy's escape. At the grocer's, 2 women whispered, "She's run off with a man, I bet." Miss Marple passed with a nod, her ears sharp. Gossip was wild, but it carried grains of truth. Her first stop was Rose Cottage. Clara answered, her face drawn, her eyes red from sleepless nights. "Miss Marple," she said, her voice faint, "the police showed me that photo again. It's haunting me." Miss Marple stepped inside, the parlour cold, the scratched clock ticking like a heartbeat. "Clara, dear, may I see it? The one with Tom, Reedman, and the grey-coated man?" Clara nodded, fetching a faded photograph from a drawer. It showed 3 men by a warehouse, crates stacked behind them. Tom Blackwood, stern and tall, stood beside Reedman, whose smile was sly. The third man, in a grey coat, had sharp features, his eyes hidden by a hat's brim. Clara pointed. "That's him. Tom called him Victor, I think. A business partner, but dangerous." Miss Marple's heart quickened, studying the photo. Victor, the grey-coated man, tied to smuggling, debts, and now Lucy. "Did Reedman mention Victor at the tea party?" "No," Clara said, her hands twisting. "But he asked if I'd heard from old friends. I thought he meant Tom's workers, but now Her voice trailed off. Miss Marple's eyes lingered on the photo, then drifted to the scratched vase. "Clara, did Lucy ever talk about London, or someone named Victor?" Clara frowned. "Not Victor, no, but she mentioned visiting London last month, said it was for books. She came back quiet, jumpy." Miss Marple nodded, her mind clicking. Lucy in London, the ad's origin, the grey-coated man. "Thank you, Clara. This helps." As she left, she passed the library, still closed, its sign unchanged. Lucy's absence was a loud silence. Miss Marple thought of a village girl, years ago, whose flight after a theft led to a hidden lover. Lucy's red mark, her bracelet, clues pointing to danger, not just guilt. Her next stop was the police station. Constable Evans was at his desk, papers piled high, his face weary. "Miss Marple," he said, "good timing. London police found Lucy. She's at a boarding house, scared but safe. They're bringing her back tomorrow." Miss Marple's eyes brightened. "Thank God! Did she say anything?" "Not much," Evans said. "Keeps saying she's in trouble, won't name names. Mentioned a man following her, a tall one, in a grey coat." Miss Marple's heart raced. "And the letters print, or the wax crest?" Evans sighed. "Print's still a mystery, no match. The crest's faint, maybe a family seal, but we're tracing it. And Harris, he's vanished. Shop's empty, neighbours saw him leave last night with a bag." Miss Marple's lips pressed thin. Harris gone, like Lucy. "Any trace of the grey-coated man?" "Not yet," Evans said, "but Clara's photo gave us a name. Victor Crane, known to London police. Small-time crook, tied to smuggling with Reedman. We're searching." Miss Marple nodded, her mind spinning. Victor Crane, the shadow, linked to the ad, the letter, Lucy's fear. "Keep me posted, Constable, and watch Dr. Thompson. He's too quiet." Evans raised an eyebrow but nodded. As Miss Marple left, the village felt tense, the mist lingering like doubt. She passed Dr. Thompson's office, its door open, a patient leaving. On impulse, she stepped inside. Dr. Thompson looked up, his face tight, his hands still. "Miss Marple," he said, "you're everywhere." "Just checking," she said, her smile gentle. "Doctor, Lucy's been found, but she's scared. That mark on her neck. Could it be from a man like Victor Crane?" His eyes narrowed, his fingers twitching. "Victor Crane? Never heard of him. A mark like that could be anything. Rope, a scarf, a fight." His voice was steady, but his hands betrayed him, tapping that nervous rhythm. Miss Marple watched him closely. "You saw Lucy near Reedman that night. Did she seem afraid of him?" "No," he said, too fast. "She was tidying, that's all. I was across the room." He stood, signalling the visit's end. She thanked him and left, her mind on his twitch. Dr. Thompson knew Victor, or Lucy's trouble, or both. She thought of a village doctor, years ago, who'd hidden a patient's secret for money. Was Thompson bought or loyal? By evening, Miss Marple reached the vicarage, hoping Mr. Clement had news of Harris. The vicar was in his study, his face grave. "Miss Marple," he said, "I heard Harris left, but yesterday he came here, gave me an envelope, said to keep it safe, only give it to you if he didn't return." Miss Marple's heart leapt. "May I see it?" Mr. Clement handed her a plain envelope, unsealed. Inside was a note, scrawled in Harris's hand. I helped Tom and Reedman, moved crates, didn't know it was illegal. Victor Crane threatened. Me said I'd pay if I talked. He was at the tea party, in the shadows. I'm sorry. A small key was taped to the note. Miss Marple's mind raced. Harris's confession. Victor at the tea party. A key. Thank you, Mr. Clement. This is vital. Back home, she lit the fire. The room warm against the chill. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like a pulse. The clues were clear. Reedman, lured by a letter and ad, killed by someone close. Lucy's bracelet scratched Clara's. Furniture. Her flight tied her to Victor Crane, the grey-coated man. Harris's note confessed his role in smuggling, his fear of Victor. Dr. Thompson's calm hid knowledge, perhaps of Victor or Lucy. Clara's photo linked Tom to the past, but her grief seemed true. Miss Marple studied the key, small brass, like one for a lockbox. She thought of a village theft, where a key led to stolen jewels. Harris's note placed Victor at the tea party, unseen by most. Was he the killer, or the puppet master? Her needles slowed. Lucy's return tomorrow would break the case. Her fear, her mark, her link to Victor. Harris's flight, his key, pointed to hidden evidence. Miss Marple sipped her tea, the fire crackling. The truth was close, like a teapot's lid rattling, ready to lift. Chapter 10. The Key's Secret. The morning sun struggled through heavy clouds over St. Mary Mead, casting a dim light on the village's quiet lanes. Miss Marple sat in her parlour, her knitting needles still, a cup of tea steaming in her hands. The murder of John Reedman, the smuggler, was a puzzle nearing its solution. Lucy's flight to London, her bracelet's scratches, the red mark on her neck, Mr. Harris's confession and disappearance, Dr. Thompson's guarded silence, and the wax-sealed letter tied to Victor Crane formed a tight web. The small brass key from Harris's note, tucked in her basket, felt heavy with promise. Today, with Lucy returning, Miss Marple would uncover the key's secret and face the shadow of Victor Crane. She slipped on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, the air cool and damp. The village buzzed with whispers. Lucy was back, seen, at the station with police. Miss Marple's heart quickened. Lucy's fear held answers, and the key might unlock them. She headed to the police station, her basket light, but her mind sharp. The station was busy, officers bustling. Constable Evans met her, his face tense. Miss Marple, Lucy's here in the back. She's scared, won't talk much, says Victor Crane threatened her, but no details. Miss Marple's eyes narrowed. May I see her, Constable? He nodded, leading her to a small room. Lucy sat, her red hair loose, her hands twisting a handkerchief. The red mark on her neck was fainter but still visible. Her eyes widened at Miss Marple. "Oh, Miss Marple, I didn't do anything, I swear." "Calm, dear," Miss Marple said, sitting. "Tell me about Victor Crane. Why are you afraid?" Lucy's voice trembled. He knew Reedman. Found me in London last month. Said I owed him for something Reedman did. I didn't know what. He grabbed my neck. Said I'd pay if I talked. Her hand touched the mark, shaking. Miss Marple's heart raced, but her face stayed kind. And at the tea party. Was Victor there? Lucy's eyes darted. I think so. In the shadows, by the door. I saw his coat, but it was dark. Then the shot. She sobbed, hiding her face. Miss Marple patted her hand, noting the silver bracelet, its edge sharp. And this bracelet, dear, it scratched Clara's furniture. Lucy froze, her hand covering it. It's old, from my mother. I didn't mean to scratch anything. I was just tidying. Miss Marple nodded, her mind clicking. Lucy's fear was real, but her story had gaps. Tell the police everything, Lucy. It'll help. Leaving the station, Miss Marple's thoughts spun. Lucy's mark tied her to Victor, her bracelet to the scratches, her fear to the tea party. But was she victim or accomplice? She thought of a village girl, years ago, whose lies hid a lover's crime. Lucy's story felt half true. Her next stop was Mr. Harris's butcher shop, hoping the key fit something there. The shop was dark, shutters locked, but Miss Marple had seen Harris's fear. He'd hide evidence close. She tried the key in the shop's back door, but it didn't fit. Inside, through a crack in the shutter, she saw a small safe in the corner, its lock gleaming. The key's size matched. She knocked, but no answer came. Miss Marple headed to the vicarage, where Mr. Clement might know more about Harris. The vicar was in his garden, pruning. "Miss Marple," he said, "you look troubled. Is it Harris?" She nodded, showing the key. "He left this, with a note about Victor Crane. Do you know if Harris kept a safe?" Mr. Clement frowned. "He mentioned a lockbox once, for shop papers. Said it was private, kept it at work, never trusted banks." Miss Marple thanked him, her mind racing. The key likely opened Harris's safe, holding proof of his smuggling, or Victor's threats. She thought of a village theft, where a hidden safe revealed stolen letters. Keys opened more than locks. By noon, she reached Dr. Thompson's office. He was alone, his face weary, his hands still. "Miss Marple," he said, "you're relentless." "Just curious," she said, sitting. "Doctor, Lucy's back, talking about Victor Crane. You said you didn't know him, but you saw her at the tea party near Reedman." His fingers tapped, that nervous rhythm. "I told you, I was across the room. I don't know any Crane." His eyes flicked away. Miss Marple's voice softened. "You're careful, Doctor, but you saw something. Lucy's fear, perhaps, or Victor in the shadows." He stood, his voice sharp. "I saw nothing. Leave it to the police." She thanked him and left, his tap-tap-tap echoing in her mind. Thompson was hiding, like a village doctor she'd known, who'd covered a crime for a friend. At the police station again, Evans had news. "Miss Marple, we opened Harris's shop, found a safe, but it's locked. No sign of him. And the wax crest, it's tied to a London family, the Cranes. Victor's their black sheep, runs shady deals." Miss Marple showed the key. "This might fit Harris's safe. It's from his note, confessing his role with Reedman and Victor." Evans's eyes widened. "We'll check it. And Lucy. She mentioned a letter Reedman gave her, said it was dangerous. She burned it, scared." Miss Marple's heart sank. A burned letter, another lost clue. "Bring Lucy to Rose Cottage tomorrow," she said. "We'll talk, all of us, Clara too." Back home, Miss Marple lit the fire, the room warm against the chill. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like thoughts. The clues were sharp. Reedman, lured by a typed letter and ad, killed by someone close. Lucy's bracelet scratched Clara's furniture. Her fear and Mark tied her to Victor Crane, who was at the tea party. Harris's note and key pointed to a safe, proof of smuggling or threats. Thompson's silence hid knowledge, perhaps of Victor. Clara's photo linked Tom to Victor, but her grief felt true. Miss Marple closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Reedman by the fireplace, Lucy tidying, her bracelet scraping. Victor in the shadows, the lights out, a scuffle, a shot. The wax, crest, the key, Lucy's burned letter. All pointed to Victor Crane, the puppet master, pulling strings from London. Her needle slowed. Tomorrow, at Rose Cottage, Lucy's truth would surface. The key would unlock Harris's secrets, and Victor's shadow would fall. The truth was close, like tea leaves settling, ready to reveal the pattern. Chapter 11. The teapot boils, the morning drizzle settled over St. Mary Mead, veiling the village in a soft grey hush. Miss Marple sat in her parlour, her knitting needles quiet, a cup of tea warming her hands. The murder of John Reedman, the smuggler, was a puzzle on the verge of unravelling. Lucy's fear, her bracelet scratches, the red mark on her neck, Mr. Harris's vanished confession, Dr. Thompson's guarded silence, and the wax-sealed letter tied to Victor Crane were threads pulled tight. The brass key from Harris's note, now in Constable Evans's hands, promised to unlock the safe and reveal the final truth. Today, at Rose Cottage, Miss Marple would gather Clara, Lucy, and the clues for one last tea, where the truth would spill. She slipped on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, her basket light, but her mind sharp. The village was tense, whispers of Lucy's return, and Harris's flight buzzing like flies. At the baker's, two women muttered, "Victor Crane's a devil! Mark my words!" Miss Marple nodded, her ears catching the fear in their voices. Gossip was a mirror, reflecting the village's pulse. Her first stop was the police station. Constable Evans was at his desk, the brass key glinting beside a stack of papers. "Miss Marple," he said, "we opened Harris's safe, found papers, ledgers, from Tom Blackwood's business, listing shipments with Reedman and Victor Crane. Smuggled goods, mostly jewellery, some cash. Harris's name's there, small deliveries." Miss Marple's eyes brightened. "And Victor Crane?" "Still searching," Evans said. "London police say he's slippery, uses aliases. Lucy's coming to Rose Cottage at noon with Clara. We'll question them together. Want to join?" "Yes," Miss Marple said, her voice firm. "I'll be there." She left, her mind racing. The ledgers tied Harris, Tom, Reedman and Victor to smuggling, motive for murder, perhaps a debt unpaid. She thought of a village scandal years ago, where ledgers revealed a hidden trade in stolen silver. Papers spoke louder than words. Next, she stopped by Dr. Thompson's office, hoping to catch him off guard. He was alone, his face pale, his hand steadying a pen. "Miss Marple," he said, his voice tight, "you're here again." "A last question, Doctor," she said, sitting. "Victor Crane, was he at the tea party? Lucy saw a grey coat, and you were watching." His fingers twitched, the pen dropping. "I told you, I saw nothing. A crowded room, dark when the lights went out. I don't know any Crane." His voice was sharp, but his eyes flickered. Miss Marple's gaze was gentle but piercing. "You're careful, Doctor. But Lucy's mark, her fear, you know more than you say." He stood, his face flushed. "I'm done answering, Miss Marple. Talk to the police." She thanked him and left, his twitch lingering in her mind. Thompson was a locked door, but cracks showed. By noon, Miss Marple reached Rose Cottage. Clara opened the door, her face hollow, a tray of tea things trembling in her hands. "Miss Marple, I'm glad you're here. Lucy's coming, and the police. It's too much." "Steady, dear," Miss Marple said, stepping inside. The parlour felt heavy, the scratched clock ticking, the vase and table silent witnesses. She helped Clara set the table, noting the photo of Tom, Reedman, and Victor Crane on the mantel. Constable Evans arrived with Lucy, her red hair tied back, her bracelet glinting. She sat, her hands clasped, avoiding eyes. Evans took a chair, his notebook ready. "Right," he said, "let's clear this up. Lucy, tell us about Victor Crane." Lucy's voice was a whisper. He scared me. Met me in London, said Reedman owed him, and I'd pay if I didn't help. I didn't know what he meant. At the tea party, I saw his coat by the door. I think he shot Reedman." Clara gasped, her teacup rattling. "Victor, here? In my house?" Miss Marple poured tea, her eyes on Lucy's bracelet, its edge sharp. "Lucy, dear, you tidied that night. Your bracelet scratched the table, the vase, the clock, near where Reedman fell. Were you close to him?" Lucy's face paled, her hand covering the bracelet. I was moving things, that's all. I didn't touch him." Evans leaned forward. "Lucy, you burned a letter from Reedman. Why?" Tears welled in her eyes. "It said to meet him at the cottage, or he'd tell Victor I was hiding. Was scared. I didn't know what they wanted." Miss Marple's mind clicked. The letter, like the ad, was a lure. "Clara," she said, "Tom's ledgers. Did they mention Lucy?" Clara shook her head. "No, just Tom, Reedman, Harris, and Victor. I didn't know Lucy was involved." Miss Marple sipped her tea. The room quiet, but for the clock. She closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Reedman by the fireplace, Lucy tidying, her bracelet scraping, Victor in the shadows, the lights out, a scuffle, a shot. The ledgers proved smuggling. Harris's note placed Victor at the scene. Lucy's fear tied her to both men. "Constable," Miss Marple said, her voice soft. "Victor Crane sent the ad and letter, luring Reedman to settle a debt. Lucy was caught, pressured by both. But the shot, someone else was near the fireplace." Evans frowned. "Who?" Miss Marple's eyes opened sharp. "Dr. Thompson. He was calm, too calm. He lied about not knowing Victor. Watched Lucy, too, closely. Check his office. Look for a grey coat or wax with a crest." Lucy gasped. "Dr. Thompson, but he's kind." "Kindness hides things," Miss Marple said. "Like a village doctor I knew who covered a crime for gain." Evans stood. "We'll search his office. Lucy, Clara, stay here." As he left, Miss Marple poured more tea, her needles clicking in her mind. The clues fit. Victor planned the murder, but Thompson pulled the trigger, tied to the smuggling ring, protecting his role. Lucy's scratches, Harris's key, the ledgers, all pointed to a trap sprung at Rose Cottage. Clara whispered, "Is it over?" "Nearly," Miss Marple said, her smile gentle. Truth, like tea, needs time to steep. Chapter 12. The Final Sip. The drizzle had lifted, leaving St. Mary Mead under a pale afternoon sky, the village air crisp with autumn's edge. Miss Marple sat in her parlour, her knitting needles still, a fresh cup of tea steaming in her hands. The murder of John Reedman, the smuggler, was a puzzle solved, yet the final threads needed tying. Lucy's fear, her bracelet scratches, the red mark on her neck, Mr. Harris's confession and flight, Dr. Thompson's lies, and the ledgers from Harris's safe pointed to Victor Crane's web, with Thompson as the hidden hand. The gathering at Rose Cottage had set the stage, and now, with Constable Evans searching Thompson's office, the truth would pour like tea from a pot. She slipped on her coat, pinned her hat, and stepped out, her basket light but her mind sharp. The village was alive with whispers. Dr. Thompson's office had been searched, and word spread of a greycoat found. At the post office, Mrs. Fletcher's voice carried, "I knew he was too calm that night." Miss Marple smiled, buying a stamp, her ears catching the village's pulse. Gossip, like tea leaves, settled into truth. Her first stop was the police station. Constable Evans met her, his face grim, but his eyes bright. "Miss Marple, you were right. We searched Thompson's office, found a grey coat, wax with a Crane family crest, and a typed note matching the ad's paper. He's in custody, denying everything." Miss Marple's heart quickened. "And Victor Crane?" "Caught in London," Evans said. "He confessed to planning the ad and letter to lure Reedman, settling a smuggling debt. Said Thompson was his man in the village, paid to watch and act. Thompson fired the shot." Miss Marple nodded, her mind clear. "And Lucy, Harris?" "Lucy's safe," Evans said. "She's cleared, just a pawn, scared by Victor's threats. Harris is still missing, but his ledgers and note were enough. We're searching." Miss Marple's eyes softened. "Thank you, Constable. May I speak to Lucy?" Evans led her to a small room where Lucy sat, her red hair loose, her bracelet gone, given to police as evidence. Her face was pale but calmer. "Miss Marple," she said, "it's over, isn't it?" "Nearly, dear," Miss Marple said, sitting. "Tell me, why did Victor target you?" Lucy's hands twisted. "Reedman. He liked me, wrote me letters. I didn't know he was a smuggler. Victor thought I knew their secrets, said I'd pay if I didn't help lure Reedman. I burned his letter, but I was too scared to run far." Miss Marple patted her hand. "You're safe now. Rest." Leaving the station, Miss Marple headed to Rose Cottage. Clara deserved to know the truth. Assure. Cottage was quiet, its roses drooping. Clara answered, her face weary but hopeful. "Miss Marple, they say Dr. Thompson did it. Is it true?" "Yes," Miss Marple said, stepping inside. The parlour was warm, the scratched clock ticking softly. Thompson was part of Tom's smuggling ring, with Reedman and Victor Crane. Victor planned Reedman's death for a debt, and Thompson shot him, hiding behind his calm. Lucy was caught in their web, and Harris fled from fear. Clara sank into a chair, her eyes wet. "Tom's business! I never knew how deep it went. And Lucy, poor girl." Miss Marple poured tea from Clara's pot, the steam curling. "It's done, Clara. The village will heal." As she left, the village glowed in the fading light, its lanes peaceful. Miss Marple passed the butcher's, still closed, and Dr. Thompson's office, now locked. She thought of a village scandal, years ago, where a doctor's lies unravelled over tea. People hid, but truth found them. Back home, Miss Marple lit the fire, the room cosy against the chill. She poured tea, her knitting resumed, needles clicking like a heartbeat. The clues had woven together. Lucy's bracelet marked her panic. Harris's key unlocked the ledgers. Thompson's calm hid his guilt, and Victor's web tied them all. Reedman's death was a smuggler's reckoning, played out in Clara's parlour. She closed her eyes, picturing the tea party. Reedman by the fireplace, Lucy tidying, her bracelet scraping, Victor in the shadows, Thompson near. The lights out, a scuffle, a shot, the ad, the letter, the wax crest, all Victor's plan, executed by Thompson's hand. Her needles slowed. The case was closed, Lucy free, Harris hunted, Thompson and Victor caught. St. Mary Mead would talk for years, but Miss Marple's work was done. She sipped her tea, the fire warm. Truth, like a good brew, always steeped through.